You walk into a cafe and you want a coffee. You stand at the counter. The person looks at you, waiting, and nothing comes out. Not because you forgot the word, because there is no word. Now you're in a strange city, lost, and you need directions. You stop someone on the street, and the two of you share no sound or sign that means left or right or please or which way is the river. Now the worst version. You're sick. Something deep inside you hurts, and you're sitting in front of the one person who could help, and you can't tell them where. No sentence. No name for the pain. No translation app to hide behind. This isn't a glitch. It is a thought experiment. Speech leaves no fossil, so we do not know exactly when full language arrived. Your ancestors lived, hunted, raised children, and built the first human cultures, but none of their conversations survived. How do they share meaning? And here's the stranger question. What would you be right now if language had never arrived? Not only spoken language. Sign languages are full languages too. Imagine that humans never developed any open-ended system of grammar that could build endless new meanings from a limited set of signals. For a long time, the story went like this. Early humans communicated with little more than a grunt, a point, and a few warning calls like animals make. And then, somewhere around 50,000 years ago, a sudden mental breakthrough seemed to switch on, and everything human came flooding out at once. Art, trade, belief. The whole explosion of the modern mind, triggered by a single late spark. It's a clean story. It's also becoming very hard to defend. Go to a cave on the southern coast of South Africa. Blombos Cave. Dig down through the layers, past the modern world, past farming, past the last ice age, all the way down to sediment that's been lying undisturbed for more than 70,000 years. In 2002, archaeologist Christopher Henshelwood and his team reported something that should not fit the old timeline. A piece of red ochre, a soft mineral pigment, deliberately carved with a repeating pattern. Lines crossing each other, like a grid, like a hashtag, scratched into rock around 77,000 years ago. Under a microscope, the cuts are unmistakable. Not random scratches. Not ordinary wear from a tool. Someone sat down, chose the lines, and made them on purpose. That's not proof of grammar, but it is an idea taken out of a human head and pressed permanently into the world. And it gets more human. In the same cave, in layers around 75,000 years old, they found shells. Tiny sea snail shells, each about the size of a pea. Dozens of them, each one perforated, some still stained with red ochre. The wear marks show they were strung on a thread and worn for a long time. Stop and think about what that takes. You walk to the shore. You pick the right shells. You make a hole through something the size of a pea by hand with a stone or bone point without shattering it. Again and again. Then you color them, string them, and wear them. Nobody does that for no reason. Because a bead isn't a cutting tool. It doesn't scrape, dig, or kill. Its main job is to be seen. It may say something. I belong to this group. I have status. I'm someone you recognize. That's the breakthrough. Not the shell. The shared meaning loaded into it. Picture a possibility, not a recovered scene. Two groups of people meet on open ground, deep in the past. The tension is real. But one group glances at the others and sees it. The same ochre-red shells, strung the same way, worn the same way. A silent passport. We're connected somehow. Maybe the spears come down before anyone understands a single call. We cannot know that exact message. The beads are not proof of peace, but they show how information can arrive before a word. So how did early humans actually communicate? Almost certainly the way you still do when words run out, with everything at once. A gesture, point mime show, a sound, a call, a warning, a rhythm, a face, and layered on top, durable symbols, marks, and ornaments that could hold meaning even when nobody was talking, even after the person who made them was gone. This is the part the old story missed. Communication wasn't sitting around waiting for one sudden switch. Long before the famous cultural surge in Ice Age Europe, people in Africa were already making objects that could carry social information across distance and time. And other human groups were not simply mute either. In 2007, Geneticist Johannes Krauss and his team reported that Neanderthals shared two derived changes in FOXP2 with living humans. FOXP2 is involved in brain circuits used for speech and language. But it is not a single language gene, and it cannot prove that Neanderthals had grammar. Then, in 2021, Mercedes Conde Valverde and her team reconstructed Neanderthal hearing. They found an auditory bandwidth similar to living humans, consistent with an efficient system of vocal communication. The physical capacity was there. The exact language was not preserved. Put on a timeline, and the old story weakens. The famous cultural expansion in Europe sits around 40 to 50,000 years ago. But the carved ochre and strung shells are sitting at roughly 75,000 years, and ochre processing technology at Blombos reaches back about 100,000. Twice as far back. That does not prove that symbols came before language. Archaeology cannot date the first sentence, and language may be much older than these objects. What it does prove is that complex culture did not suddenly appear from nothing in Europe. The roots were deeper, slower, and already spreading through different kinds of behavior. Language didn't create the human mind out of nothing. It amplified minds that were already learning, signaling, making, teaching, and remembering together. Which brings us back to the harder question. The one you felt in that cafe. What if it had stopped there? What if humans could gesture, imitate, call, and use simple symbols but full language, sentences, grammar, that endless machine for building new meaning out of old, never actually arrived? You wouldn't be silent. Get that right first. You'd still gesture, still call out, still read faces, still carve and wear your meaning into the world. A version of you would still be here, but something specific would be missing. And it's bigger than small talk. Language is how one human hands a complicated thought to another human with high precision in seconds, and how the human hands it on again. It's how knowledge stacks. One person works something out, and instead of dying with them, it climbs into the next generation, and the next, each one adding a floor. Take that away, and the stacking slows. Painfully. In 2015, Thomas Morgan and his colleagues tested how adults learned to make Oldowan-style stone flakes. People improved most when teaching included language. Imitation alone passed the skill on far less reliably. You can show someone how to chip a stone, hand to hand. You cannot easily explain why one angle works better than another, what happened 3 valleys over last winter, or how to prepare for a danger you cannot physically demonstrate right now. So the most likely path isn't a planet of grunting cavemen. It's something quieter and sadder. A world that learns, but struggles to outrun forgetting. Knowledge that has to be rediscovered more often instead of inherited cleanly. Groups would still exist, perhaps even large ones. But coordinating people beyond a glance, a gesture, or a repeated ritual would be harder. Complex instructions would distort more easily. Distant plans would be harder to hold together. Not no history, but less stable history, because there is no precise way to carry a long story across centuries. Not no abstract thought, but fewer shared abstractions that can be named, combined, challenged, and preserved. No written law, because writing is language made visible. No detailed plan that can move far beyond the people who first imagined it. Everything you call civilization, the city, the contract, the science, the myth, runs on one trick. Moving a detailed thought out of one mind into many others and keeping enough of it intact. Take away open-ended language and the whole thing doesn't explode. It just struggles to assemble. The evidence does not show that meaning came first and words came later. It shows something subtler. Meaning has always been larger than words. Early humans could carry it in gesture, sound, pigment, shell, posture, and memory. Language made that shared world faster, more precise, and almost endlessly expandable. So the next time you're standing in that cafe, with no shared language and no translation app, and you point, you mime, you hold up 2 fingers and somehow the coffee arrives, that isn't language disappearing. That's one ancient layer of human communication taking over when another layer fails. Before speech left any trace, Humans were already putting meaning on their bodies and into objects that could outlast them. We have not forgotten how to communicate without words. We've just forgotten how much of humanity was built from everything around them.